from EdgeQ, Vice President and Head of Silicon Engineering. Mr. Harpinder from AMD, Senior Director, Product Marketing, Data Center and Communication Group. We have Mr. Sundeep Singh, Head of Automation, Analytics and Artificial Intelligence, Ericsson, and our moderator, Mr. Sushant Rabra, KPMG partner.
Hi, thanks everyone for joining in. While we had some time to get onto this stage, I think we had fairly interesting conversation on various facets of this already, but I can tell you the opportunities are completely outstanding. Even from a core economic value creation, right? If you look at it, basis some of the estimates, there is going to be about $1.5 trillion of economic value added, which will be net new on top of the world economy because of the digital technologies in the next 5 years. Now, a fair chunk of that is going to come from the emerging technologies such as 5G and the way they interplay with other technologies like AI, ML, and so on, and create use cases or possibilities which did not exist before. Specifically for India, of course, we have seen a very strong and favorable policy regime in that direction, both from the 5G dimension as well as the investments which are being made in AI, in the academia and industry complex, in terms of encouraging research and solving India by India, right? So there's a very interesting set of use cases which are going around in that particular domain. I am honored to be today in company of industry stalwarts who have deep expertise in this particular subject. And without further ado, let me straight away get rolling and hear their thoughts on the topic. So maybe I'd like to first start with Monika. So Monika, we hear a lot about the entire 5G revolution which is coming in, and we have now million and possibly billions of devices coming through. From a data storm, we are getting into data deluge. And on the other hand, we have these innovations happening in AI. How do you see that entire story panning out in terms of creating new innovations?
So, am I audible? Okay, perfect. So, I'll start with a very basic thing, and I don't know how many of you know about ISO standards and all, but there is this basic principle of ISO. What you can't measure, you can't improve. And I think our quest and our thirst for data started with that. It was all in our ability to be able to measure better and then use it for improvement. And then in that process, obviously, the way everything is getting connected, we were obviously taken by surprise with this entire deluge of data coming in, and hence now, I think that same statement has to be a little modified, that we even need to measure intelligently to improve better. And that's automatically the moment you say measure intelligently, you are suddenly looking at intelligence, whether artificial, human, and I won't even call it artificial, I'll say augmented by humans. So human intelligence augmented with machines or augmented by logic and tools which they themselves create is the power. And without which, I think it's impossible to have meaningful outcomes. And hence, it's actually a great timing because it's a coming together of a lot of very high potential, very meaningful technologies. Good connectivity, good powerful intelligent compute, and even good data collection technologies, which can then be stitched end to end to bring out meaningful outcomes. But then, just to kind of leave a thought for all of you, taking a cue of the very famous dialogue from Spider-Man, with great complementarity also comes great responsibility. If we don't stitch it properly end to end, the outcomes will never happen. So I'll take a pause with that and let the discussion continue.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Monika, for sharing your thoughts on that. And we hear a lot about this entire 5G enterprise. So maybe if I want to take a view from Harpinder, what's your view on the entire concept of 5G enterprise? Is it another marketing slogan, or what is the difference that you see from what traditionally organizations used to do with their classical networks and applications to now what you see as the future of 5G and AI coming together?
So I think it's very important to restate that that 5G was standardized with service as the core theme behind it. So it's basically a service-based architecture. The core network has been completely redone to facilitate new services. And the whole point behind that was to do integration of vertical industries with the 5G network. So the moment we have that kind of premise, we have to start and build the network keeping in mind that it's not just connectivity that we are offering, but that connectivity has to be leveraged to service multiple functions within the industry, whether it's the supply chain, whether it's warehousing, whether it's the retail industry, whether it's healthcare, and so on and so forth. There are so many segments that can benefit from 5G, from service-based angle of 5G that we have here. Right? So from that perspective, important thing to mention here is that we have different variables that we need to manage within the network. So if you talk of base station today, it's not just the enhanced mobile broadband. It has to also service ultra-reliable, low-latency kind of traffic, as well as massive machine-type communication, which is more driven based on spotty communication, lower cost, lower power. So in order to manage three different variables, say for example, within a same base station, you need to have a very different approach in how you're scheduling things. And that's where AI as a tool is coming into play. It basically can help us schedule different services by having learning that we gather from these networks in terms of user mobility, traffic profiles, and how the radio network is behaving in conjunction with the neighboring base stations. So I think AI/ML is a very significant tool in deploying new services in enterprise environment by leveraging what we learn while we are running these networks. Not only one operator's network, but neighboring operators as well can work together. And this tool can really help us deploy these services at a higher efficiency. In the sense, one of the key things I would like to mention here as a closing note of this answer is that operators worldwide are looking for how can they improve the efficiency that they can get from a single base station. So if you can improve 20% efficiency, delivery efficiency, it's a significant savings. So if you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars in infrastructure, it effectively amounts to a significant amount of savings that you can have, plus also you're serving your clientele with much better service and performance.
Thank you. Thank you. No, I absolutely can relate to that, and the possibilities, as I say, are endless, the way you stitch this together. So while we have seen many of these use cases and ideas in India, maybe let's reach out and draw upon the experience of Sundeep as you have worked across various regions and you lead this competency. What are the innovations that you have seen or that you see coming up when AI, ML, and 5G come in together and the magic happens?
Thanks for such a great question. We just realized that the possibility of AI and 5G coming together is mind-blowing. Something we, two or 3 years ago, we couldn't even imagine what we're looking at doing and completing now with some enterprise customers. So the possibilities at the moment are endless. It opens up new business models, opens up new revenue streams for enterprise. It actually evolves, and I think it's been discussed a lot today, around economic growth for the country as well. Some innovative use cases. We actually have a demo here. Ericsson has a demo at the booth, which is a smart rice in the metaverse. And what we've done there is it's an agri-tech type demonstration that we've done. And we use technology such as drones, so unmanned flying vehicles, to capture images of a rice field. So we've created basically a digital twin of a rice field. And we use data, real-time data, from images from drones that are captured to monitor the health of the rice field. We have IoT sensors that are deployed in the soil of the rice field that monitor the nutrition level of the soil. So we've developed intelligent algorithms and also using AI to provide recommendations for farmers. When is the optimal time for them to harvest their rice? Because that's the most important thing for them, to make sure they can maximize their yield of their crop. The other most important thing is we're able to do scenario planning. As we know, weather's unpredictable. We could foresee that there may be a heavy rain expected in the next 2 months. So we can simulate models and provide recommendations based on that simulation. So you can be proactive and preemptive about how this particular farmer might be able to manage his or her crop, and so it doesn't get damaged or destroyed as well. So we've done a lot of research in this area. There's many data, and variables and inputs that we use, but ultimately, it benefits the farmer and his output of rice. But there's many use cases. We're also working with airports, with smart ports as well, with the mining industry to help areas, especially around safety and productivity, smart cities. There's just a huge list of areas, and the possibilities are really endless. So there's a lot to do. I think we're sort of in the initial stages of a lot of great ideas, a lot of thought. And I think this is really going to be an area where a number of industries, companies need to come together to help the evolution, to fast track this. It's not going to be a single, AMD or Ericsson or anyone doing it in isolation.
Perfect, thank you. I think we are all on the same page as far as the opportunity is concerned, and I'm glad to see some of these innovative use cases in terms of crop management, in terms of metals and mining and so on, and many of these could be relevant to the Indian context as well. So thank you for that. Now switching gears and looking at the core technology model around AI plus 5G, would like to take thoughts from Mr. Hariprasad in terms of how do you see the overall model work? I mean, we have had stories around edge becoming stronger because of 5G. Then we heard about edge is now not that relevant because anyways everything is now there in the cloud. Then we also heard about custom hardware. So we're just going to take your thoughts on how do you see this entire technology landscape evolving in this regard?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So what we see it as, 5G is all about creating digital assets. So now your question is, where is my digital asset? So what we are seeing is that 5G is bringing 5G and compute are coming to the data. So 5G, you can have huge number of devices, huge number of IoT devices to be deployed. But with 5G, what you can do is, the compute can be farther away, but the compute will come to the data because now you have low latency and throughput. So what has happened, the communication pipe has become wider because of 5G, and the communication pipe has become shorter because of 5G because the latency is smaller. So what is really happening is that as EdgeQ sees it, compute and 5G is coming together. We have a single chip base station SoC that can do compute and AI on the same chip, and based on the use case, and it's fully software programmable. So based on the use case, the vendor can appropriately map it to the particular use case. So there are multiple scenarios that that is applicable, and based on, we should create devices and systems that can leverage this. So it has to be fully programmable. It has to have compute and connectivity both on the same die, so that you don't have to be worried about where is my compute, where is my connectivity, and how do I use it, because my use cases are different. Programmability, compute, and connectivity on the same device. And by the EdgeQ has an example where it's one device, compute and connectivity, and the size of a coin, I can have a base station chip, and at low cost.
That sounds actually quite exciting. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that. Now we'll go into open question format. So we'll bring up a topic and we'll request any of the panelists to come in and share their thoughts on that, and others can also add in. One dimension that we wanted to pick up is around, when we're talking about AI plus 5G, it's around ethics of 5G, of AI, right? So we all know that, of course, end of day AI models are being trained, and they are being trained on data, and that data, of course, comes in from real world, and in some sense, even our biases creep into that. Now, when we have tons and tons of data about people, about processes, about organizations, which allows you to make much more granular decisions on them, and this could be a supply chain decision, resource allocation decision, hiring decision, funding decision, could be any number of decisions which are being taken, then does it mean that even those AI decisions now are also pretty much on steroids at 5G speeds? And how do you manage the other side of the spectrum, which is to ensure that it is equitable and fair to all the stakeholders?
So, I'm going to answer this with a very interesting, relevant example, and an example which is close to me because I'm kind of working in 5G. So, in 5G for healthcare, teletransmission and telemedicine is a very, very strong use case because you are now able to provide medical healthcare services to people at the convenience of their location, and then also a direct interaction with the expert doctor or the consultant, wherever the person may be. In that, the power of AI comes in, where you take these medical imaging and your diagnostic files, and you run basically an AI engine, and you kind of train that AI engine to detect the common health ailments. Could be pneumonia or COVID, could be some anomaly in the abdomen or any other. Now comes the question about, coming to this question of ethical AI. So I would kind of not give you a clear answer because I don't think there is a black and white answer, but I would just kind of lay open the pros and the cons, or for that matter, all the sides or the different aspects which I can think of. Now, initially, if we kind of just look at healthcare, how often did all of us actually use medical diagnostics during our treatments? I mean, and all of us here in this room are at least, have at least 15 plus years of good medical healthcare experience. As we were growing up in the young age, how often did we get a blood test? How often did we get an ultrasound? How often did we get an X-ray? And now these things have become very routine as part of any medical consultation, because it gives you better accuracy, it gives you right treatment. But then the flip side of it, it's putting so much of pressure on the medical care fraternity. Many of you would have heard of that term of radiologist burnouts. So is it not imperative that you help them? How can you help them? By giving them tools by which their job gets eased, and that tool is nothing but a virtual radiologist. Now, virtual radiologist is nothing but an AI engine which is doing a radiologist's job. So now, on one side, if you take the devil's version of the ethical thing, you might say, oh, well, no, you are not going to do it. But then if you look at it from an end-to-end value chain and from the way things are evolving, I think it's a necessity. And again, like I always say, for me, AI is not, it is of course artificial intelligence, but it is not a replacement to human intelligence. It's an augmentation. If it helps reduce clinical errors, if it helps making our way and ease of working better, why not? A simple example, and that would be the last, when small kids write examinations, you give them calculators. The intent is you want to test their problem solving and not their mathematical calculation skills. The same is the case with the radiologist. You want him to do right diagnosis and not spend his time in observing and diagnosing the imaging file. And that's the power of AI. So in nutshell, I'm a big supporter. Yes, there are boundaries. There will be cases when the ethical boundaries will be tested. It is for all of us to find answers. But constraints or concerns like ethical concerns and whether AI will overtake human intelligence should not be something which should stop us.
So maybe I can give a completely different perspective. It's a broad question. So if you look at 5G as a network, and there probably a question of being ethical or not is quite different, because how can we really tap into the intelligence that resides in the network to offer much better service? So that is one question that we need to solve by using AI as a tool. So I'll give you an example that we've been working with a few customers who have deployed 5G massive MIMO radios. I'm giving you an example here. So this is a 64TRX radio, which can support 16 downlink beams, right? Now, what they're finding is, despite the fact that they can service 16 users simultaneously, they're finding that in normal course of their network operation, there are only 3 or 4 or 5 users, and rest of the beams are being unused, untapped, right? So this is a typical problem where you have to look into how you're running your scheduler, right? Schedulers have been done using traditional algorithms, And that's where they're trying to look into AI tools to really optimize and learn the radio channel conditions so that they can combine multiple users. And if there is a latent capacity in the network, they can provide that capacity for other services, right? And we're just talking of this one base station. They're deploying hundreds and thousands of base stations. So how do we really work at RAN, or what we call RAN intelligent controller, to really optimize the performance of the network? And that's where obviously we need to know a little bit of the user behavior. That is, okay, what is the mobility of the user? What is the traffic pattern? So there's some level of information that we need to learn about users, which anyways, I think with the way network operates, it's all obfuscated. You don't basically share any user-specific information, but it's a SIM card detail that is always there. It's always encrypted. But I think that information alone can really help us to set the stage for operating the networks to their full capacity. And I think that aspect of AI/ML can feed into what Monika mentioned. The service which needs to run on top of that has certainly multiple phases that need to be managed from ethical standpoint, from equitable standpoint, that every user gets equal treatment, not based on what service they have purchased. So I think there are multiple aspects where we need to look at 5G networks. And if you look at just the hardware perspective, there are multiple things that can be done to improve the performance and also augment service delivery.
Today we have in the panel representation from various parts of the industry, right? So we are coming from the hardware lens, we are coming in from the network lens, we are coming in from applications lens. Maybe an open question to the panel. How do you see the AI plus 5G sort of overall solutioning evolve? Would you see this becoming more, I would say, closely knit or tightly coupled use case based models which will evolve? Or do you see that it will be a loosely coupled ecosystem? On one dimension, we spoke about saying now we have down to the hardware level, as you mentioned, specific hardware being created with AI engines running on top of them for n number of use cases, which is very tightly coupled ecosystem. On the other hand, we are looking at solutions where we are saying we can work with everybody. So seems to be two different divergent themes. Wanted to take thoughts from this panel. How do you see this going?
Yeah, let me take that first. So what I said is that the hardware should not be too specific. It should be programmable so that based on the use case and based on the scenario, you can leverage the power of AI or 5G. For example, in our chip, with the same, if you see AI and 5G, it's the same mathematical operations that run behind it. Convolution requires matrix multiplication, and multiplication. And same with channel estimation or demodulation. So the same hardware can be used for AI and 5G, and but the hardware is common and it's software that changes. So where it converges, we see when EdgeQ was started 4 years ago, we didn't see 5G and AI as being compartmentalized. We saw it as a converged whole. And that's why the whole idea has been how to leverage, where is the commonality between 5G and AI and how to leverage it and make it, critical thing is make it a software programmable hardware so that the end user and the vendor can decide, okay, how do I leverage the power of the device. And as the Prime Minister was saying in the address today, the device has to be low cost. So based on, you have to be sensitive to the cost factor. And cost factor, I have one disconnect that cost factor, don't manufacture in a low cost area is not the only way, but innovation. So India should innovate, invest not only in manufacturing low cost, but innovating and creating new ideas so that the device cost and the system cost can come down. Now, the base station SoC that we build, typically it will take $1,200 for one base or higher for a base station chip. Today we can do with half the cost. So what we should do is innovation, not just low cost manufacturing, but innovation also to move the edge.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks. I might just add on to that from a different perspective. One of the key challenges is many enterprise, they want to get started with AI, but they don't know where and how. I think that's one of the biggest challenges. So it's very it can be quite daunting on where do they start, what investments do they need to make. The return on investment is not always clear up front. It's very difficult to be able to determine that. So the business case in a lot of instances is a little bit muddy. And what we've developed at Ericsson is we've developed an AI exchange platform. So what this is basically we gather a library of models. And these models can be applicable across different industries, different applications. So what this does, it actually enables and facilitates the use of AI models in a more effective and efficient manner. So enterprise doesn't need to invest in having specialist data scientists and very specialist types of capability and resources to be able to develop and then deploy and then test and then maintain as well. It's quite challenging. So this was a major pain point that we saw in taking that first and second step forward. We also see that there is a lot of commonality amongst various AI use cases. But there is also very specific requirements as well. So it's kind of, you can say, yes, there's commonality, but then there's a layer of specificity which needs to be taken into account. And that's where we get, enterprise can get stuck as well. But definitely it's a very relevant question.
Thank you. I understand that we are almost drawing to a close in terms of our time. So maybe a rapid fire question for all of our panelists here. We heard a lot about use cases of AI and how various industries will get transformed by AI and 5G coming in together. If we were to ask you your top 2 picks, which industries do you think will see maximum impact in the next medium term? I would not say short term, but at least in the medium term. What will be your 2 big bets? Start from you, sir.
I get to be the first person here. So I would say that the enterprise, particularly in industry, will be the biggest benefactor of this. And besides that, smart city, as Sundeep mentioned already, these will be the 2 big drivers. But important thing to mention here in this context is that the AI models have to evolve to really service these segments. So as we know that the hyperscalers world or in cloud domain, we have video analytics has made significant progress, or natural language processing has made significant progress. But in order to service these use cases, we have to come up with different models where the inference rate could be commensurate with what application requires. Just to give an example, if it is ultra reliable, low latency application, our inference has to be thousands of K instances of inferences per second versus, say, tens of inferences that you see in video analytics. So it's very important for AI/ML to be adapted per the use case, and also the cost of compute is very important. So you cannot really afford to have a significant compute that video analytics engines use. So you have to also tailor these models to address these use cases where they are being made available at the right cost point, and power as well.
From my point of view, I think I'll kind of, the 2 sectors which I would choose is industrial operations, Industry 4.0, and healthcare.
I think it's coming to the same, Industrial 4.0, and for a country like India, as the PM was saying that he wants to see more exports, I would put smart ports as something we should seriously look at and make sure that we have a smart port which can do the logistics, transfer, handling, and use computer vision, AI. And it's not just AI, it has to be AI, computer vision, drones, a marriage of multiple, and 5G, which brings compute and connectivity together. We cannot see AI in isolation, multiple of this topic, right? It's the right topic, not just AI alone. I think we should converge multiple of this together, and industrial automation for 4.0, and for a country like India who wants to export, increase exports, smart ports is something we should seriously look at.
I think I need to concur with the Industry 4.0, but specifically I think definitely in manufacturing. And the reason why I say that is Ericsson has a state-of-the-art manufacturing facility in the US, which is powered by 5G enterprise solution, and it's absolutely amazing in terms of productivity, but more importantly also sustainability, which is something that's very close and near to my heart. And the second one for me, I think, is smart cities. I think there's a huge potential, a big impact for us to be able to live more sustainably, much more, I think, if I say smart, it sounds a bit strange, but I think we can live a lot more intelligently than what we do today in how we utilize resources that are in cities.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, esteemed panelists, for your valuable time today. I think we are all on the same page. We are all the converts in terms of the opportunity that 5G plus AI presents in front of us. And the use cases are all across in the entire industry. We saw from smart cities to ports to manufacturing to healthcare, core enterprises. So I would say the use cases are all across. But few themes which clearly stood out during this conversation is, one, yes, there is an appreciation that this is the next big thing and the possibilities are going to get created. The second theme which we also saw is that there will be use cases for industry, and there will be, taking your point, there will be a balance between what is the commonality versus what is the specificity in terms of these use cases. We also see that there is a fair degree of traction already happening. You shared your example around the actual hardware, custom hardware which is being built. And also you spoke about AI Exchange, the program which is being run to help people onboard new ideas, new use cases much better than it has been done elsewhere. And we also saw, while we all talk about AI external facing in terms of how 5G and AI comes in together, it was very interesting to see viewpoints coming in where we, from Mr. Harpinder, where we said, what about the network itself? How can we make the network itself much more smarter? You gave examples about how the efficiency can be bought in, and therefore eventually we will be able to give more equitable and fair access to people, as well as bringing out equitable and fairness in the use cases which are built on top of AI, which are being serviced to the end customer. So all in all, I would say fairly engaging and interesting conversation today. I hope we had more time to go deeper into it, but I'm taking up a few nuggets of wisdom from today's conversation. Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much.